fiction. So there was no
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 13th, 2023 Redevelopment Agency meeting. Please let the record reflect that all council members, or all board members, excuse me, are present with the exception of Vice Chair Ritchie and Board Member Lopez, who have asked to be excused. I've asked Board Member Heyer to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, and rise if you're able, and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just making me laugh. I can't help it. I'm sorry. Okay, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you so much. Would anybody like to offer any acknowledgements this evening? Well, I would love to just, I guess it's not really an announcement, I acknowledge that Juneteenth is coming up next Monday. It's a state and federal holiday, and I know there'll be some really big celebrations happening the whole month in honor of Juneteenth. But I know that there will be some great events happening at our amphitheater this weekend. So everybody should make sure to look those up and find out what's happening.
Saturday and Sunday are the dates
Yeah.
for the celebration here in the
Yeah.
amphitheater.
Yeah, thank you. Any other acknowledgements? Okay, we'll move on. We actually have this evening a public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2023 to 24 budget. We have Glenn Symes, our Deputy Director of the City Council, to present for us. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this hopefully shouldn't take too long, but if you have any questions, please jump in. So, do you have the clicker or just the... That's okay. No, that's all right. I can do it by hand. As you mentioned, this is the proposal for the final FY24 RDA budget. And right now, there are 13 active project areas in the budget. And as you know, depending on when they were approved, what the specific laws were at the time, dictates the name under which they appear. So we've got 6 that are redevelopment project areas, 1 urban renewal area, 1 community development project area, 3 CRAs with a 4th that would be the airport, and then 2 economic development project areas. So just quickly to go over funding sources for RDA. A huge portion of revenues for RDA is TIF. And then there are also some BDO lease revenue transfers, interagency transfers, interfund transfers, a little bit of interest income, and then some miscellaneous revenues that can appear. So this is the big 3, kind of one way to think about it, the big 3 areas of an RDA budget: the administration, the district activity, and then the housing fund. And that's a percentage, and so that can rise and fall with some of the RDA district activities. You can see overall there's an increase of $1.7 million, about just under 12.5% on the overall activity for the budget year over year. And this is a breakdown of all the districts. You'll see, even though there's quite a few districts on there, a handful of those did expire, so you can see those are zeroed out for the upcoming year. A couple of those other ones are still in the budget, but had expired in previous years, so you see those are zeroed out as well. There are some increases in a few of the districts based on some activity that's proposed for the upcoming year, specifically the East Washington. There's some funding in there for the East Temple project that we've talked about. You see a pretty significant increase in the Kiesel district. That is funding for Union Station projects and also the Weber County parking project that we have talked about. And then Adams project, that was mentioned in one of our meetings. That's really more of a correction from previous estimates. So that's just an accounting correction on that one. So I won't go over all of them. If you guys have questions on those I'd be happy to answer them if I could. We've got some smart folks on the back row who could probably provide a little bit more detail if you have specific questions on those.
Glenn, I have a quick question. Just regarding the Kiesel, you mentioned it's going to the Union Station. Can you just expound on that a little bit more?
Yeah, and that I might actually defer to Lisa or Brandon to talk about. There's two. There's a land purchase that's the 780,000, and then another 700,000 for Union Station development. And maybe I can recruit them to talk about specifically what that 700,000 is for. I don't know if I can or not.
We can't.
They're
really
fighting who gets to come up.
Right.
So I
See,
think they
Lisa,
both.
I
I think
can't
they
see
both
if
should
there's
have to come
anybody-
up.
I think there's a reason. There's strategic
Yeah.
placement here, so I can't tell who's over there. If only I had X-ray vision.
So I was paying attention. The question is about the Kiesel CRA and the transfer in for that, correct?
Yeah, regarding Union Station, how that's being applied to Union Station.
So you can see, I'm sorry, you can see both the 780 and the 700 on there as transfers from BDO lease revenue.
Right, because the Union Station is not currently an RDA. We're using the Kiesel CRA, which is a contiguous project area that can receive the transfer in for the purpose of using that money on a contiguous area that abuts the current project area. So we felt like in the case of the purchase of the land under Union Station, that was an appropriate place to put that, as well as the transfer in for Union Station development, both coming from BDO lease revenue.
Can I just ask a follow-up question of that? So we have partners or interlocal agreements with others when we do the original agreement. Are we required to go back and talk with them about these kind of changes and where the funding go?
No, because interlocal agreements are related specifically to the contributions that the taxing entities make via their tax revenues. And so if this was money being moved around that changed anything in those agreements, then we would likely have to go back and do that. But because this is a transfer in from a non-TIF source, then it's just a functional mechanism to do that. Doesn't affect the interlocal.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I took all the airspace. Any other questions?
I was going to ask about the for the expiring RDAs and CRAs and URAs, the residuals that are collected. Can you explain the residuals?
So generally speaking, and this might be a better question answered by Lisa, but generally speaking, our project areas expire on December 31st of a certain year, but our collections happen in subsequent years just because of how taxes are paid and collected and received by us. And so sometimes we will collect taxes beyond the expiration of a project area.
Additionally, there are instances where we don't budget the full amount of the TIF. So that we set a budget, we estimate what it will be. We get more TIF than we anticipated. That goes into fund balance of that area. So it just accumulates there until we do something with it. This past year, we did a cleanup to close out some of those TIFs, and most of that money went to the RDA Housing Fund.
Okay, thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. Was your question was your question related to Kiesel or the airport? The one-
It was just the Kiesel because that funding was,
okay.
wasn't about the airport.
Okay. I just noted, how do we account for the CRA that was approved last week for the airport in the upcoming budget? It's not accounted for here.
So the trigger date for the CRA has to be a January. So we have to notify the county before the January date, or we do not collect taxes for that year. Since this RDA was not approved until later in the year, the earliest we could start collecting taxes is fiscal year 25. Thank you.
Interesting.
Instead of 24, January of FY24?
Sorry, Lisa.
I think we-
Just stay there, Lisa.
That's actually a great question. It is likely that we could get a little tax that January of 24, if that does happen. It's really up to CED when they're ready to pull the trigger
Okay.
on those districts. So we couldn't coordinate with them on those budgets. The levy happens January 1st. So if someone pays in advance of the due date, which is November.
But if there's no new development, there's no TIF for
That's
us to
true.
collect.
That's true.
And the likelihood of somebody starting a project now and being completed by January is probably slim.
Good point. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure there's nothing else I can add. So
Any other questions
if you have
from
any other
anybody
questions
else?
for me. We've gone over this, these projects a number of times, so if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Can you go back a few slides? That one. So I just want to make sure, because there's a lot of people that always think that we have a lot of money in the RDA. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. So the proposed is $15.8 million, of which I'm assuming, based on this, that 12.7 of it's being accounted for in increment. Is that correct?
Right, yep. So if you look at that 12.7, that's the same 12.7 for all of these districts in that one. So yeah, that is specifically for the districts, yeah.
So in reality, it says $15.8 million, but most of it's going off to pay on those
Right.
districts.
Yep, and then a percentage is administration, and a percentage is housing. Yeah.
And that housing, that $2.1 million can be used for housing anywhere in the city, correct?
As far as I understand it, yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to make that clear, that it looks like it's a really big number, but in reality, most of it's going to that tax increment piece already.
Yeah, so that's all I have. So if you have any other questions for me or the smarter people that are behind me, I'd be happy to farm those
They've all
out.
sat down. Can we go to dinner now? I'm just kidding.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion from board members? Great. Well, this is a public hearing on this item, so we'd love to invite anyone to make comment on this item alone in the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2023 to 24 budget for the RDA. You can step up to the podium and have 3 minutes to speak, or if you're online and you're on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand there, and then we'll be happy to let you speak.
Hi, Teresa Bramwell. I just have one quick comment. My understanding is that the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative, of which there was $1 million there that was for that, that money is earmarked for the East Central neighborhood. In all the documents I have read about the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative, that money is earmarked for the East Central neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any online?
Chair, seeing no one rushing to the podium and seeing no hands online, I will make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
A motion by Board Member Heyer, a second by Board Member Blair to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any other discussion, or would anybody like to propose a motion?
Chair, I would make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2023-10.
We have a motion by Board Member Heyer and a second by Board Member Blair to adopt proposed resolution 2023-10. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair.
Aye.
Board Member Heyer.
Aye.
Board Member Nadolski.
Aye.
Board Member White.
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you all.
Chair, is there someone that can give us clarification on that $1 million?
The $1 million. Oh, right. Would anybody like to speak to that? Is Lisa coming? Lisa, sorry, you should have sat a little closer, I guess, to get your steps in.
Your council staff has already asked us to do a better job of separating RDA housing and quality neighborhoods. Right now, those are budgeted in the same funds. We use two different strings of accounts to account for them. So quality neighborhoods is also in the housing funds along with the RDA housing. Quality neighborhoods is specified for a specific area. RDA housing is just housing. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the reminder, because I forgot to do that. Great, well, up next we have general public comments, and just to note that this will be the only general public comment period this evening. We do have a municipal building authority meeting as well as a special city council meeting coming up after this, but there will not be general public comments in those meetings. So this is an opportunity to address the board regarding any concerns or ideas on any topic. You can step up to the front or raise your hand if you're online on the Zoom meeting. I guess time is up. I mean, I didn't even take 3 minutes, but welcome.
Thank you. Chris Berrigan, Ogden City resident. I'm going to try to get this in 3. This is just a statement regarding the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, the Dinosaur Park, and everything that's going on. Hope you'll listen to it and go from there. And I'm going to read it because I had to put it together. There's a lot of community interest in this issue, as there should be. Some impactful and critically involved voices have remained all too quiet, and some voices are using incomplete information to exploit emotions and cause divisiveness. By contrast, I have made it a priority since I first learned of the issue in April to seek understanding and to do my homework. That homework has included communication with the Executive Director of the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, with the Executive Directors of the Ogden Nature Center and the Dinosaur Park. It has included a lot of learning on my part from Utah conservation experts, including Utah's Hogle Zoo and the Department of Wildlife Resources. Based on my extensive searching, I've come to an opinion on this situation. The city should have done a better job communicating and setting expectations with the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. That being said, there's been ample support given to the Rehabilitation Center over the past decade, and though unfortunate, it's time to move on. As a nonprofit, the Rehab Center has a responsibility not only to their core mission, but also to the means by which they are able to accomplish their mission. Integral in that is the establishment of a diverse and experienced board, as well as a strategic plan. In my opinion, failure to do both of these has led to some of the blame for the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center's current situation. The decision to create an incendiary atmosphere where protests and gaslighting has occurred is unfortunate, but it's also somewhat understandable given their position. Meanwhile, the Dinosaur Park has built a robust board with highly respectable members. They have developed a strategic plan which includes expansion. Their plan is being delayed because of this situation, and with each day of the delay, the cost for the project increases. Precious dollars that were gathered through fundraising and grants over time now cover less and less of the proposed project. The overarching principle is this: we have many nonprofits in our city, and they have needs for financial support. If our goal as a city is to provide any financial support to these, I would ask our administration, whoever that might be in the near future, as well as our city council, to clearly outline expectations as well as standards for participation, and then clearly and regularly communicate these to the nonprofits. Future situations like this can be avoided if we are responsible and clear in our role in our communication. And with 19 seconds left, I just say I'm open to give you any additional information if you'd like to talk to me one-off, and I guess I'm ready to get pelted with things both here, online, and everywhere else. Thank you all for what you do.
Thank you, and welcome to public service. Any other comments? Welcome.
Hello, Teresa Holmes, Ogden resident. Everything he said is probably true, but the problem is every day people are calling in with sick animals and wounded animals to go to the Wildlife Rehab Center. And no matter what, you guys talk about money when animals are alive. Dinosaurs have been gone for 65 million years, and why can't you just donate a little piece of that property or the building to the wildlife people with maybe 2 parking lots? I mean, would that be so hard, and you keep the rest, Mayor Caldwell? Is there any way they could do that? Donate the whole building? You know, it's not a very big spot they're on. And there's all those trees out there and all those birds. That is such a perfect place to do this. And I'm thinking about the birds. And how many birds have died since you guys started this? They closed down on the 15th. Every day they have to turn people away on the phone. And not only that, you know, don't you guys feel a little bit guilty about this? I would if I were you, because you can do more. You know, and as far as Union Station goes, I still want those museums saved and our campus saved with all our trains and our history. It doesn't need to go to apartment buildings or mass, whatever they call it, mass density. Why do we need mass density in Ogden? You know, a lot of us that live here are trying to figure that out. So, and I don't know, what's the plan? Save the Wildlife Center, save Union Station, save our trains? I mean, we can do this. We could do it all. But we have to have cooperation, and you guys just can't sign away everything and vote for everything certain people want. Stand up. Have some guts, you know. Don't rubber stamp everything. Thanks.
Thank you.
I love birds.
Any other comments? Oh, come on up.
Laura Lewis. I would like to kind of question some of the things Chris just said. He made the comment that the delay with the Wildlife Center moving is holding up the development of the dinosaur park, and as far as I know, there isn't even a finalized plan yet. Did you guys receive your copy of the? It was my understanding you were supposed to receive some sort of plan on the development. So I would like to make that clear that there is no plan yet. So there's no way that the Wildlife Center, giving them a delay, I will use less than 3 minutes.
No, sorry.
So
He's
there's
new.
no
He's
way
new to
that
this
what's
role.
going
I
on now
apologize,
is
yeah.
holding up any development at the park. So I just want to make that clear. When we're talking about people spreading misinformation, let's make sure what we're saying is true and don't make accusations if you're not certain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, something's blowing up at work on me too over here, so I'm a little distracted and out of practice.
You want me to try to do both?
Good evening, Teresa Bramwell. I would like to address the idea of, well, I'd like to know actually, who is the person responsible for going back to see if the things we've already done were successful or if they were a giant crap sandwich? Because I feel like there's been some things in Ogden that have really brought down the city, and none of them have been investigated as to what the causes of those things were. One that I specifically know about, because I have been the victim of it for many years now, are the apartments on the corner of 25th and Monroe. I won't tell you the name. I do know what the name is. I know the names of everybody involved in it. I know where they are. So what that is it was funded by the state of Utah to create low-income housing in that building. And a very rich guy that owned a car dealership sold his car dealership, and he bought this building. The state of Utah funded a bunch of money for him to create low-income housing. It's run by a nonprofit organization that has a very rich and influential board of directors that all live in Salt Lake City and have a very rich, expensive building that they meet in Salt Lake City that is very well secured with fences and locking doors and guards at the door. Meanwhile, the building that they own and they run is filled with criminals. It's caused blight in my neighborhood. It's caused everyone around it to become crime victims. I have spoken with the police probably 350 times at my property on 25th and Monroe, and they continually tell me it's because of the apartments on the corner. The apartments on the corner are the problem. The apartments on the corner are in the top 3 crime-creating zones in the city of Ogden. Now, it's not legal in my zoning for a nonprofit to run a housing development. So what my opinion of what this is are these people that run this nonprofit are not in my backyard people. So they're all rich. They all live in Salt Lake. They moved this crime infestation into the city of Ogden and plopped it right next to my house. I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about being a crime victim, and this should never be allowed to happen again, ever, in the city of Ogden. Never again.
Thank you. Any other comments in the audience? Welcome.
Good evening. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I would like to read you an email from John Patterson, former CAO for Ogden City, of which I will forward this to you. Daylin, I was shocked and saddened to see on Fox 13 News that Ogden City is forcing you to leave the old animal shelter. I was the Ogden City CAO that negotiated terms of your agreement with the city. While my memory of events in 2011 are not crystal clear, I do recall how excited I was to have you there. The work you do is so important. The old animal shelter is in bad shape, would have required significant upgrades. So from a city perspective, you were putting to a beneficial use an old building that would have cost us money. I thought this was a win-win. You received the facility, the city freed itself from cost of impacts. Here's the important part. I believe our attorneys said we couldn't just give you public property outright without a competitive process, so the best thing to do was to make it a temporary agreement. Well, after 12 years, why would anyone think it was no longer temporary? And I am sure you've had to replace the roof AC. He goes on to talk about the dinosaur park, skipping to, because I only have 3 minutes. After 12 years, no reasonable person would believe the temporary agreement was ever to be terminated. I recall the only reason for it being titled temporary is because the city can't give public property away without a formal open process. Well, we've kind of seen that that can happen when you really push the limits of the code and the RDA. I suppose Mr. Patterson is speaking from following the spirit. Surely there is some way to resolve this issue to every party's satisfaction. Mayor Mike Caldwell is a reasonable, compassionate person. I would seek his help. Mayor Caldwell, you have not returned any of the calls or the emails, the over hundreds. So I beseech you to start talking to people because Mr. Patterson believes you to be quote unquote reasonable and compassionate. And I would expect that you would want to speak to your constituents. I would seek his help. There are several on the council I believe to be equally rational and caring. My best to you. Let me know what else I can do. And I will forward this to each of the city council members, which has John Patterson's cell number. And I met with Mark Wayment on May 25th at 10 o'clock. And he said that the push to do the parking lot was not coming from him. And the challenge here is that, yes, it's city property. Yes, you may do with it as you will. However, we have thousands of animals that are dying. The statistics are 3 every single day based on all of their data. 16 of those species under Utah's Protected and Active Conservation Act. I beseech you to talk to John Patterson.
Thank you. Any other comments in the audience? Okay, we can go online. It looks like Keith Sato.
Hi there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I'd just like to make a comment regarding a previous commenter's statements that this situation was holding up work at the dinosaur park. You have all, at this point, seen a rough idea of the plans, which shows all of the work being done around that building and not needing to destroy that building before that work is complete. Also, the mayor himself said when we last spoke about this that he had not seen any plans himself. He had not seen any timelines. He had no idea what was going on over there, essentially. So I find it hard to believe that it is a correct statement to say that this situation is holding up building a parking lot. What it is doing is ending the lives of a lot of injured animals needlessly. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any other comments. Any responses to those? I don't think I have received the dinosaur parks plan. We haven't received that, right, Janine?
No.
Any other comments? Okay. Then we can go on to executive
Oh,
director.
you want more?
comments?
Oh, I thought you meant
sorry.
you were going to go to him first. I'm sorry.
So sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this being an RDA meeting, I want to thank the staff that has put so much time and energy into these reports and the budgeting and everything else. So thank you all very much. I appreciate the people that have commented. We've read and listened to every one of the comments and the feedback on that, and that's not lost. That's I understand that this is an emotional issue, and I appreciate everybody's patience as we work through it. As I mentioned last week, we've given them a number of different options to extend and to work through that. I will say, though, however, to just push back a little bit, that has been 12 full years of no lease, a free building, and everything else. So for people to say that we have not supported what has gone out there, I find to be exceedingly unfair. We have a lot of other nonprofits in our community that have never received that kind of treatment, and I don't think that's fair at all. And they've had a long runway to come in and try to figure out some of the issues that we've presented to them. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up. I had actually a nonprofit reach out to me and wondered where they could get that deal from the city. And so this isn't just about, and this nonprofit actually works with troubled youth. So, saving those lives too could be really important as well. So.
Any other comments from board members? All righty. Well, I'm happy to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion from board member Nadolski and a second by board member Blair. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll set up and get ready for our next meeting. Reflect that all trustees are present with the exception of trustee Lopez and vice chair Ritchie, who have asked to be excused. This evening we have the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2023 to 24 budget, and we welcome Warren Hallmark, our policy analyst, to talk to us about it.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, trustees. The MBA budget is understood to be quite complex and detailed, so I hope not to overwhelm anybody as we move to this next screen.
Take it slow.
Take it slow. Let me know what questions you have. I'm kidding, of course, as this one is pretty straightforward. The fiscal year 2024 budget is proposed for $5,000, entirely for the professional and technical line item, which takes care of financial reporting as it is required throughout the year. So, pretty straightforward. Any questions for me?
Any questions?
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone from the audience would like to come up and speak for 3 minutes on this topic, You're welcome, or if you're online on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand. Would you like to close?
Chair, I'm not seeing anybody rushing to speak on this item. Not surprised, but I would make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Heyer, a second by trustee White to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Great. Well, unless there's other discussion, I'd be happy to take a motion on this item.
Chair, I would make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution to 2023-2.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Blair and a second by trustee Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2023-2, the proposed fiscal year 2023 to 24 budget. This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Heyer.
Aye.
Trustee Dodolsky.
Aye.
Trustee White.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
I like the sound of that. Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you so much. Any comments from the president?
Just this is the last time I'll ever be called president in probably my entire life. So with that, I have nothing to add.
Any other comments from trustees?
Seems like we need a little fanfare about that president thing.
Yeah.
Just this last time somehow. Do we have balloons or anything? Or?
I just think it's so exciting that we completed that Marshall Wade Center bond call this week. It's very exciting. Alrighty, well, I'm happy to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion by trustee Hires, a second by trustee Nadolski to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll set up for our next meeting. Okay, welcome everyone to the June 13th, 2023 Special City Council meeting. Please let the record reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Vice Chair Ritchie and Councilmember Lopez. We have just one item on the agenda this evening, the consideration of adjourning into a closed session.
Chair, I'd make a motion that we adjourn into a closed session for one of the 7 items listed.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, a second by Councilmember Blair to adjourn into a closed session. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. And we should probably, I'm not sure if we're coming back into this meeting after, probably not, so just so the public's aware. Thank you.